Dr. Shark,
You may want to.
I'm curious whether you think that the National Health Service provides a better context for integrating medical and mental health care than what passes for a healthcare system in our country.
No. It should do, and maybe it could, maybe it will. But if we take Oxford, where I am, we have two completely separate organisations, managerially, financially, geographically, culturally separate. One of which you visited, I think, which is actually it was the posher of the two psychiatric hospitals.
Yeah.
They closed the other one. And then there's the big general hospital, John Radcliffe Hospital, actually where I work. And so we have, even within that socialised universal care system, completely separate organisations for mental health care and physical health care. Our primary care system is supposed to hold it together. It does to some extent, but it's overburdened and frankly crumbling. So what I want to say to you is socialised healthcare has its pros and cons, but don't imagine that will automatically solve it. It's this divide we have, which is not only practical, it's cultural, and maybe even the way attitudinal, between mental and physical care still persists even within a socialised system. So we need to do more than socialise your healthcare system.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any thoughts about back in maybe couple generations ago when there was the quote-unquote family doc who maybe, your parents, you and your kids would all see as a GP or an internist. There wasn't that much you could do about treating cancer back then, but the doctors spent much more time. Versus now, when there is more you can do about cancer, but the doctors don't have time. And I just wanted to get general thoughts about that, the outcomes, psychological implications.
Do you want to say about that, Kaylee?
No, I wouldn't. No, I mean, I don't.
It's kind of echoing, I think, what we all know is the downside of the technical explosion in medicine that we're now starting to realise is the stripping out of what used to be called the art of medicine. And we'll have to think how we're going to deal with that, because expecting, whether it's primary care doctors, oncologists, to do all the technical stuff and to do all the other stuff, we could expect them to do more, but it's not going to be enough. So we have to build teams to do it. And our key roles in this country, we have a different role here, social workers, psychologists, nurses, other people, not as a split-off bit of care, but as part of the care team with the physician, I think is the way to go. Primary care doctors, certainly, I guess it's the same here. They used to, my grandfather we talked about, the one thing we had, he died at home, the primary care doctor used to come around and talk to him. And frankly, I think the primary care doctor euthanized him with a big dose of morphine, which was the best thing that could have possibly happened for everybody. Couldn't do that now, wouldn't come round to the house, wouldn't have the time, and he's got so much technical stuff the hospital's just thrown out for him to take care of, people coming out almost with, cannulas still in their arm. There isn't time to do that. So we're not going to have enough. I think that age is gone. So we need to find a way of getting it back by augmenting the team, I think, rather than expecting the docs to do more. At least that's my thought.
Okay, maybe some people ask questions.
In this society of quick fixes, it's oftentimes hard to get people to persist and persevere, not give up or refuse treatment. And that may be more so for mental health treatments, the cancer care or the medical care treatment. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, do you have any recommendations or advice or just thoughts on how you approach that in your own personal experiences, persistence, perseverance?
Sure, or adherence to a medical regime, absolutely, because again, you're talking to some extent about the age of onset and the chronicity of the illness. So cancer is relatively acute, even though it may risk the recurrence. whereas something like schizophrenia, bipolar illness, recurrent depression is not. And so we know that the major problem in treating bipolar illness is not that we don't have treatments, it's that people won't take those treatments. And that 50% of people will stop against medical advice. And that people are very young, and a lot of good reasons for people doing that. And actually one of the things that we're doing at Hopkins tomorrow is trying to get people who feel very strongly that there are good things associated with their illness, which a lot of people who have bipolar illness do feel, to get them hooked in very early, instead of reading them the act that we generally do when they first come in, is you've got a terrible disease, you're going to die if you don't take your medications, you're going to have horrible, your mania is going to come back, and all this kind of thing, is to say, yes, those things may be true, that's part of the illness, it's treatable, but what we're going to do is, ask you about what are some of the things that you associate that are positive with your illness, and what can we do to preserve those things and talk about those things. And so, because a lot of it, non-adherence is associated with that, but there's no question that the issue you bring up is the major, it doesn't do you any good to have medication that works if people don't take it. It's the same thing as not having the medication. So it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem because the average age of onset is 18 or 19 years old, as opposed to cancer and heart disease. I mean, come much later in people's lives, and people perceive they will take treatments like, really extreme chemotherapies on the sense that it will keep them alive. It's very hard to convince somebody who's 18 years old that taking lithium for the next 60, 70 years is going to keep that person alive. This is where the art of persuasion, I think medicine is very much persuasion, and intelligent persuasion, and informed persuasion, humanistic persuasion, but it's very much persuasion. It's the art of persuasion.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I think it's very, very helpful. Really appreciate it.